The Justice Department has made it clear time after time that a sitting president cannot be indicted. So what happens now to the man identified in the Michael Cohen court documents as Individual 1, also known as President Trump? Let's bring in former Assistant U.S. Attorney Kim Whaley and former federal prosecutor Seth Waxman. I want you guys to take a listen to President Trump explaining why this is not a campaign finance violation.
They didn't come out of the campaign, and that's big. But they weren't. It's not even a campaign violation.
He's saying that because he paid for this himself, the hush money to Stormy Daniels and American media did the payment of sorts to Karen McDougal, that it's not campaign money, therefore it's not a campaign violation. True?
Well, two things. One is that we have a federal judge as well as federal prosecutors that accepted this plea. So the notion that somehow the president can undo whether this is a crime or not is sort of silly. The other point is that the issue has to do with disclosure. So regardless of whether it came from his company, that would be a violation. Whether it came from him through Cohen, none of it was disclosed. That itself is the problem. The campaign and election laws care about knowing where the money's going, so people know how to vote. They know who's actually paying for these campaigns. That's the problem. And the issue with whether it was knowing, the notion that it was handed over in order to affect the outcome of the campaign, that is, we don't want this information coming out because it's going to hurt the candidate, that's what makes it a crime as distinct from a civil violation. So
Michael Cohen said and pleaded to, he did this directed by President Trump, coordinated by President Trump, then candidate Trump, to affect the election. But the president's defenders have argued, and again, this is an odd defense, but this guy's been paying off women to keep their mouths shut for a long time. Not just women, other people too. Therefore, it's not necessarily related to the presidential election. Do they have an argument to make?
Sure, they have to come up with something. I mean, that can be an argument. John Edwards made a similar kind of argument. This had to do with my girlfriend, not the campaign. But the timing and the circumstances are so different. In the Edwards case, it was months, if not years removed, and it was a current girlfriend. This was people he had affairs with allegedly 10 years ago on the very doorstep of the election. So the timing's very different. In addition, the actions Mr. Trump took to make those payments, passing it through his attorney, through a corporation, in a way that prosecutors would argue would be to disguise the nature of the transaction, all circumstantial evidence of wrongdoing or criminal intent.
So, Kim, Cohen said in court that Trump directed him to quiet these two women who allegedly had affairs with him, but that wasn't in the court documents. Why wouldn't prosecutors have that in writing to what he pleaded to?
So the statement that Cohen made during the actual, I'm not sure exactly why that itself wouldn't have been in the document. Perhaps Seth has a thought on that. But
does it even matter?
I mean, he said it in open court under oath, and the court accepted his plea. And so if it weren't an actual crime, if there weren't evidence supporting the allegations that he was pleading guilty to, the Article 3 judge wouldn't accept that.
So a president, the Justice Department guidelines are a president can't be indicted. So does this just take it to the political realm of impeachment? Is that the only legal ramification here, potentially?
Yeah, that's a big ramification. I mean, I think that's right. I'm of the opinion that a sitting president shouldn't be indicted. There are impeachment proceedings. The framers set up a very, well thought out process in case a president goes south. To allow an individual federal prosecutor or other prosecutor, state prosecutor, to indict the president and allow 12 jurors to decide the fate of that president could run amok. So there's an impeachment proceeding that can take place, and I think that's where this can ultimately head up.
I actually have a different view on that.
Sure. Yeah, I know there was a debate.
Yeah, there was a debate. We had, Ken Starr's office as well as Leon Jaworski's office both concluded that you couldn't indict a sitting president. We have...
You could.
You could, yes. Yeah. There are memos out there. So it's not clear in the Constitution. People talk about plain reading of the Constitution. Whether you could indict a sitting president is not in there. I think the structure of the Constitution assumes that there's accountability for every member of our government. And to the extent to which Congress right now is sort of out to lunch, they're not actually doing their oversight role here. The notion that there would be no accountability potentially if this political process fails, I think is a problem. I do think You could, in theory, indict a sitting president and put it under seal. The public wouldn't know. And then after he finishes office, then those cases could go forward on the theory that we'd have to toll the statute of limitations. The memos on this issue from OLC as well as from the special prosecutors really boil down to, is it going to interfere with his ability to execute the law under Article 2? And if it's quiet, if the public isn't aware of it, I don't think that would interfere.
Let me ask you a final question, both of you, which is President Trump's defenders and President Trump himself have suggested that because Manafort was only found guilty of 8 of the 18 charges, the other 10 were resulted in a hung jury or mistrial on those 10. But 8 out of 18, President Trump wrote, a large number of counts, 10, could not even be decided in the Paul Manafort case. Witch hunt. I don't know what witch hunt has to do with that there. But in any case, as former prosecutors, 8 out of 18, are you happy with that result?
Well, let me flip it around. As a defense lawyer, that would not be a good day for me and my client. The idea that I had a case defending an individual client and they got convicted on 8 very serious counts, bank fraud, tax evasion, with sentencing guidelines that could be anywhere from 10 to 20 years. So Mr. Trump's statement, I think, is a wishful thinking, not reality. It was a bad day for Mr. Manafort, clearly, and for the Trump organization as a whole.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, politically, too, I think the White House now is stumbling. They're running out of ways of spinning this in a way that's not absolutely damaging. And I think we're seeing the House is going to fall. The House of Cards eventually. I'm not sure how it'll come down, but this is not sustainable in a popsicle stand, let alone the White House and the executive branch of government in the United States.
All right. Kim Whaley, Seth Waxman, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate it.